Well, good afternoon, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Dan Clements Show, a Christian political talk show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior, fighting for your right just to be an American. It is December 19th, the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the sunny Central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. I had to go. I do a little work this morning, nothing major. I put new brake pads on the Nissan that we own in the front. One of them was getting kind of noisy, and so I went out and changed those. And I'm still close to my normal time of doing that. It takes me about an hour from the time I set my tool bucket down to the time I'm picking it back up and heading back into the house. Just about an hour just to put new brake pads on. These new vehicles are getting so easy to put these disc brakes on. It's like almost like falling off the log. So I got that done this morning. I'm also was doing some light reading on the show. I entitled the show "To Immigrate or Not to Immigrate." That is the question. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about some deaths, murders actually, that have been in the news. Kate Steinley's, or Steinell, however you want to pronounce it. I believe it's pronounced Kate Steinley, and her death and what's going on with that. There's also the reporting yesterday that an illegal alien was charged with a 14-year-old Texas girl death. I think this happened back in April or May of this year. So he's finally been charged with that murder. Evidently, they got enough evidence, and we're gonna talk about some of the issues surrounding the immigration debate that's going on. I'm not totally in the camp of the libertarians, where there's a lot of libertarians. They're anti-state. They don't believe in the state, so they don't believe there should be any state-controlled borders. I don't go that far, because I do believe that countries have borders, states have borders, and states have the right, because of the consent of the people here in the United States, to dictate to the world who is or is not allowed to come into our country. To me, it's just that simple. I don't believe in totally open borders. I believe in a common sense approach to immigration. And I also believe that, like it or not, I think we need to be choosy about who we allow in this country. We definitely do not want to allow a bunch of terrorists in the country. Now, I'm not saying that all Muslims are terrorists, but the vast majority, the overwhelming vast majority of terrorists in the world are Muslims. And we need to try to do our best to check their backgrounds and check their bona fides, as it were, before we let them in this country. And also, chain migration. I've been doing a little bit of studying on chain migration. And this is one of those loopholes that needs to be closed, because you might have an immigrant from a foreign country here that is someone, that has some type of skill set, education, or whatever, that wants to come here and be part of the American experience and live out their life in a free country. But then they might have a nephew. I don't know. I didn't get into how far out the chain migration goes, but let's say you have a son-in-law that's married to your daughter, and he's just worthless. He doesn't contribute anything to society. But since he's a relative of someone that's already here through chain migration, that sort of gives them a leg up to get into the country. And again, this individual may not add to the overall prosperity of the country. Might even take away from it. Now, you might be saying, well, you have Americans that do that. Well, yeah, but they're born here. We didn't go to another country and pick them up and allow them to come in here. They're born here. And so as Americans, to deal with that. But why should we have to deal with, honestly, getting the leftovers from another country? I've often said about Mexico, Mexico has been using the United States as a relief valve. Because if we had a border wall and the millions of immigrants, the 30, 40, 50 million, whatever the count is, of illegal immigrants from Mexico or that have come through Mexico, were stopped in Mexico And remember, folks, Mexico has one of the most well working. I mean, this their southern border fence works well. And if you're in the country and you're trying to reside in the country and you're not invited there, you're an illegal immigrant, you are escorted off the premises right away. Mexican law. But here in the United States, no, we can't do that here in the United States. And if 30, 40, 50 million of these immigrants didn't come to the United States, then Mexico would be forced to deal with them. But since they have the America to the north, the United States to the north of them, that allows these illegal immigrants to come in here, and a lot of this is due to politics. Politicians, I don't care if you're mostly Democrat, but I know there's some Republicans that think this way too, that they'll vote for them. You know, get them over here, tell them that how nice we were to bring them over here, give them a job, give them a place to live, but vote for me. And it's about political power. A lot of immigration is about political power. And this is why the left, the regressive left in this country, especially in the Democrat Party, this is why they lose their collective minds when President Trump legally exercises executive power on immigration. And the Supreme Court has upheld him. And last order back down, but they said it's got to stay in place. Well, you guys figure it out. And I believe all my heart, if it hits the Supreme Court again, they're going to make a judgment on it to where the left is really going to lose their minds. It seems to me that every time we push back against the left with common sense, right thinking, or you might even be able to say righteous thinking on certain issues, you know they're going to lose their mind. Net neutrality. The bill to kill what Ajit Pai and the FCC just did to getting rid of net neutrality. I've been tracking this. When I found out about it, the day after it was actually put forward in the Energy and Commerce Committee, and there's a sub takes care of the telecommunications, I went over and started looking at it. And not that I'm not worried about it, but there's a tracking, there's an analytic service that gives the probability if the bill's going to pass, and only gives it a 5% bill will ever see the light of day. Chucky Schumer's introducing legislation. He hasn't done it yet because I've been checking. I actually checked this morning, but I was listening on One American News Network, and he is introducing legislation to reinstate net neutrality. And I think this is something Congress is going to have to do. And I've already left a phone call for my congressman, my representative, Lou Barletta, telling him he's doing a good job and telling him they need to pass a bill or pass a law that just gets rid of it. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the week here again about net neutrality. I'm going to try to get a couple small videos out about that because some of these states are cutting their own nose off to spite their own faces, trying to say, well, we're gonna keep net neutrality in our state. And my only quip to that is, let me know how that works out for you. But getting back to immigration, there is so much wrong with the immigration system today, and I can't just blame it on the Democrats. I got to blame it on the federal government, even though it's within their purview. Because in the enumerated powers, it talks about the power for, to govern over the naturalization. Article 1, Section 2. Or wait a minute. Article 1, Section 8, powers of Congress. Establish uniform rules of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. So they establish uniform rules of naturalization, and that has to do, some libertarians tell me, well, that doesn't have anything to do with immigration. Well, how do you naturalize somebody if they don't immigrate to the United States? They don't come here. That to me is it's a non-starter as far as an argument. But again, you got a lot of libertarians are anti-state to begin with, so you have to take a lot of what they say with a grain of salt, because we do have a state right now, and we have to deal with what we have. and we have to try to put them back within their chains, as it were. But I think on as far as immigration and border control and stuff like that, I think that the Constitution, the federal government has that power to defend this country and defend its borders. And if we choose as a country to build a border wall on our southern border to help defend our borders, there's nothing unconstitutional about that. There just isn't. Now, you can question whether it's foolhardy or not, but that's a whole different subject. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as we have these Kate Steinleys, we have this one Rayan Moody, a 14-year-old girl, and this illegal alien was charged with her murder in Texas. We also have another story, that a mom of a son brutally killed by a illegal alien disgusted over the DACA gridlock. Again, you know, we've talked about the Dreamers or DACA before. And yeah, is it a bad situation that they're in? Yes. But who put them in that situation? I didn't. You didn't. State of Pennsylvania or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania didn't, or any state within the Union didn't put them in that situation. Federal government definitely didn't put them in that situation. Who put them in that situation? Where they're not American citizens, even though they may have grown up here all their lives, or the vast majority of their young lives they grew up here. It's their parents' fault. But you don't hear anybody blaming the parents, except for guys like me that may seem uncaring. And it's not that I'm uncaring, but you know, we're supposed to be a country of laws, not men. We have object in this country. And if something happens, like with the Dreamers, blame your parents. Go to them and say, why did you do this to me? Why did you put me in such a lurch? Didn't you think about the consequences of your actions? But you don't hear that from the lamestream media. You don't hear any of these Dreamers talking about this at all. And I also have another article from the Federation for American Immigration Reform, of serious crimes committed by illegals. And this is one of these continuing lists that they keep adding to. And this thing is like, I don't know, about 8 pages long or something like that. It's ridiculous how long this thing is. And we keep going over again and again and again about these illegals. This whole thing about illegals is just, it's almost like a broken record that we need to get off the turntable and put another record on. They shouldn't be here. These young people that are being killed, these parents that are mourning the death of their children because an illegal alien that might have been deported 4 or 5 times ended up killing one of their loved ones. And the left, the regressive left in this country cannot explain that. Oh, they might give out some condolences and stuff like that, but they can't explain to anybody with any type of sense why they would allow this chain migration, this, might as well be a revolving door as far as some of these immigrants. When we put them back to Mexico, they're just back up here in a couple weeks or a couple months. I went through the effort to begin with. Plus, in the case of Kate Steinley's death, San Francisco, a sanctuary city that is going against a enumerated power that the states, when this country was first formed and the Constitution was put in place and ratified, said that this is federal government and they have the supremacy over the states when it comes to naturalization and immigration. That's where the supremacy clause comes in. Any of the enumerated powers that are put forth in the Constitution, the federal government has supreme control over that. And the federal government doesn't have supreme control over the states through the FCC or the FTC or any of these bureaucracies that are unconstitutional. the EPA, IRS, Department of Energy, Department of Education, the Department of the Interior. All these unconstitutional bureaucracies, the federal government does not have the supremacy in them. Those powers are reserved to the states. So these sanctuary cities are in violation of the Constitution. They're in violation of federal law. And quite frankly, if the Department of Homeland Security, which I don't agree with, but let's go with it because it's there, the Department of Homeland Security has every right under federal law to go in and take care of the situation in these sanctuary cities. Do you think, and this is something here, do you think the police forces in these sanctuary cities are going to stand with the city against federal agents that are coming in and doing their job? I bet you if you could get a serious poll taken that was anonymous with the police departments in these sanctuary cities, they would, because of the crimes that are being committed by illegal aliens in these sanctuary cities, they would want these criminals out of their jurisdiction so they don't have to deal with them. Money on that they would actually do that. And I'm not a betting man, but I would put good money on that. I really, really would. All right, let's get into the show here, folks. You got some equipment you need fixed. I just went over my snowblower, started it up, running the gas was sitting in there from last winter. Of course, I winterized my gas, and especially this time of year when I go to fill up my 5-gallon cans, I have an additive in there to extend the life of the gasoline. But I went over it. And thank God I didn't have to replace anything on it. But if I did, and I needed a part for it, and I couldn't find it locally here, I'd be right on SearsPartDirect.com. If you go over to the DanClementsShow.com on the show notes page, and you go down on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see the Sears Parts Direct widget. And if you enter through that, they're an affiliate partner of mine. You'll be helping support the show. Plus, you'll get great deals. You'll be able to find the parts you need for your outdoor power equipment to fix, and also any appliances that you need to fix. And if you use my widget on my website and you put in the offer code that's there, you'll get 10% off your lawn equipment parts or your appliance parts or anything. And 9 times out of 10, that more than covers the cost of your shipping. So what are you waiting for? Get the parts you need to fix those snow blowers or any other winter type things. If you can't get the parts locally for it, get them and get that thing fixed before you really need it, because it's better to have and not need than need and not have. All right, today's daily Bible reading comes from the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verses 6 through 7. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. For the increase of his government and peace there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. This is talking again about Jesus Christ and what he was coming to do here on earth, and the actual kingdom that he was setting up, and the government that he was going to be over. And I think this is where sometimes Jewish folks, they fall down in their argument about delivered from occupation. At that time it had been Roman occupation, and they didn't understand all the totality of the prophecies of Christ. And even Christ himself talked about what his job was, and he even told Pilate, he says, if my kingdom was of this world, my servants would have fought, but it's not. So there you have it. Today's quote meal comes from J.R. Miller. God does not give his grace as he gives his sunshine, pouring it out on all alike. He discriminates in spiritual blessings. He gives strength according to our need. His eye is ever on us in tender, watchful love, and that we need his. Think about that. And this one here, this one The short Bible lesson today, I love the title of it. It's from Eric Lyons, master. He has a mastering ministry over at apologeticspress.org. You people are crazy. Good articles talking about what we believe in and the evidence that points to that there is a God that atheists and agnostics and skeptics refuse to even look at scientifically. And the problem, and I've said this before, and other more learned men than myself have said this too, that it takes more faith to be an atheist or not or skeptic than it does to be a Christian, because of the lack of evidence, scientific evidence they actually have for their stance. So good article. Go read that. I laughed when I seen that. I said this would be a good article for my program. You people are crazy to believe what you believe. I noticed that I just looking over at my picture or my video, and I noticed that it's kind of dark. I have to do some work on lighting up the floor behind me, because I'm sitting lower. It's not catching all the light that I need, so I have to work on that in here. But anyway, hopefully you'll bear with me on that. Like I said, I'm trying to improve the show. I'm trying to improve how I do things. I'm sitting during the show now. I'm standing during show prep with the legs I have on here. They're great. I encourage, just a little side note, a little public service announcement, PSA. I encourage you, if you don't have a desk that you can adjust from a sitting to a standing position, get your boss to look into that. Get your boss to check those out. Now, with me, I already had a desktop that I built for my pallet wood desk, and I took the pallet legs off of it and did some work on it and put these legs up underneath it, and the legs only cost me a little under $200. So it's not a huge fix to get a desk where it will raise up and lower for you, and I can still put a few things underneath the legs, like some cupboards and everything underneath the legs on either end to store stuff. So but it's fantastic. You get to stand up, get some blood flowing through your legs. I've seen people that actually went to the extreme of putting a treadmill underneath their standing desk. Matter of fact, we were looking at that a couple years ago, putting a treadmill underneath the standing desk, and walk like 1 mile an hour while you're working, and it's great. Standing desks are great, especially the ones you can adjust back and forth. All right, let's story here, this first story, and let me set up a couple of the next couple stories here. Sometimes I get so involved in reading and getting set up for the show that I forget to put I forget to go over and everything's getting slow now. Hang on just a second. Let me keep doing this. All right, there's 3 of them up there. But anyway, it amazes me how many people in this country are on the wrong side of issues. And I'm not saying I'm always in the right. I'm not saying that at all. And I would never, unless I'm joking with you, I would never say I'm always in the right. So I'm never ever going to do that, because there's always room for improvement. Always room for improvement, folks. And this is where I'm at. I'll stand to be corrected. I really, really will. Now, we're going to be talking about Rayan. I believe that's how I went on the computer, and this is how one of them pronounced it, Rayan, Rhyan, Moody. Now, she was 14 years old. And I'm going to leave this picture up for you a little bit while I'm going over the article here, because this is this breaks my heart, because I had a twin sister that passed away in a car accident, and it'll be 35. It was 35 years ago, a couple weeks ago, that we actually buried her. But it was November 29th that she was killed in a car accident. And that pain, it never really goes away. If you can, and a lot of people do this, you compartmentalize it. You don't think on it too much. Every now and then you take the memories out, and you think about it, and you just go through your day. And I had a baby brother that committed suicide. That still hurts today. And I can't believe, I saw my mother and what she went through in losing both her children, because there's an old saying that parents should not outlive their children, and there's some truth to that. And so I've seen what my mom went through with my sister in her passing, and my baby brother passing also. But we have this is an article by Michael W. Chapman over at cnsnews.com. Now, he posted this up yesterday. Legal alien charged with killing 14-year-old Texas girl. Rayanne Moody, a 14-year-old high school freshman from Colleyville, Texas, was killed when an illegal alien, apparently intoxicated, allegedly smashed an SUV into the car she was traveling in with her grandparents on Thanksgiving night, November 23rd. Okay. I got some dates. I said during the monologue, I talked about this being back in April, and that was another article. I apologize for that. When I read these things, sometimes dates get stuck in my head, and I shouldn't do that. And this happened on November 23rd, and was in the back seat. Died from blunt force trauma to her head. Her grandparents suffered numerous broken bones and are recovering. Needless to say, if the illegal alien had not been in this country, Moody would be alive today. And I would say should be alive, okay? Should be alive. But, if you take everything into consideration here, Mr. Chapman's right here. Michael's right here that she should be alive today. Jose Victor Chaparro-Saenz, 38, was arrested in his vehicle not far from the accident. Alcohol was found in the vehicle, and Chaparro-Saenz reportedly appeared intoxicated. He was charged with manslaughter, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and resisting arrest, according to Fox 4 Dallas. While in jail, an immigration detainer was placed on Chaparro-Saenz by ICE, according to FoxNews.com. The illegal alien had been previously caught illegally entering the U.S. in 1998 from Mexico. He voluntarily returned to Mexico at that time. Rayanne Moody attended Colleyville Heritage High School. She was a cheerleader. In a GoFundMe page set up to pay for Moody's funeral costs, her grandparents' medical bills, and establish a memorial scholarship fund, it says of Moody, "I was just an above-average teenager who excelled in every area of life. I had a heart of gold, and my personality filled the room. I am leaving behind a devastated family who will suffer from this tragedy for the rest of time. I have two broken-hearted sisters who were my best friends. My grandmother and grandfather were in an accident as well, and both have outrageous medical bills. They will be recovering throughout the holidays with broken bones and broken hearts." So we have this family that's going through this tragedy that they shouldn't have had to go through. They should not have to be going through this, folks. They really shouldn't. And this is what makes me mad about our immigration system that we have. We have people, the regressive leftists in the Democrat Party, who want as many illegal immigrants here because they know that they'll vote for them, even though the votes may be, even though the votes are illegal by illegal immigrants. If you're not a legal citizen of the United States, you don't have the right to vote in our elections. California and these other states that let America vote wants to have motor voter laws where if you get a driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote. And honestly, folks, getting the driver's license, they're not really checking that hard to make sure the documents that they're using are legit. So if they have a license, they have a photo ID that makes them eligible to vote, whether they have legal status in this country or not. And this is why some of these laws like this actually benefit the illegal aliens and benefit the folks that let these illegal aliens in the country, like the Democrats. So my heart goes out to the Moody family. And, her grandparents just, they're recovering from broken bones, but like I said, they have to deal with the death of their granddaughter while they're going through rehab. That's tough. That's a tough row to hoe, and it shouldn't have happened. Again, it should not have happened. have been in this country, period. I'm sorry, he should not have. And maybe a border wall would have stopped him. Maybe a border wall would have deterred him. Matter of fact, I believe Donald Trump's doing the right thing about, getting rid of welfare for illegal immigrants. I think the less benefits we give them, the more they're just going to want to go back to their home country. Because matter of fact, and this is the thing you don't understand, and this is something I've been looking into and watching some videos on. They're called expats, expatriates from other countries. There are a lot of Americans who don't have huge retirement funds, set aside, plus they're getting a Social Security check. They're actually moving down to localities because they can live a very good life on that income. And so you have illegal immigrants up here, and one of the services they use, Western Union or PayPal or whatever, to wire money to their families down in Mexico, make up here, their families can live very well down in Mexico. They really can. And so there's a lot of incentives for these folks to come up here and work and send that money back. To break our laws, crossing the border, getting jobs, and if they have a Social Security number, it's illegally obtained. If they have a driver's license, it's illegally obtained. And reports and different stories on the internet from good sources like the Federation for American Immigration Reform and the Center for American, I gotta look it up here now. I'm an idiot. Center for Immigration Studies, CIS, is another one that I use, and it's a really, really good source. But a lot of immigrants are driving vehicles they're not even licensed. They just drive. And so I don't know how many laws you have to break in this country. Coming here illegally, lawbreaker. I don't understand that. I don't get it, Big Dan. I don't get it. Now, in another one here that we have going on here with Kate Steinle's, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I really, really am. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Kate Steinle's death was preventable, and Congress must act now to secure the border and end sanctuary jurisdictions. And see, again, naturalization is an enumerated power, which includes immigration. They control immigration. That's how you have to read the Constitution. I've had some libertarian friends say it's only over naturalization they have the power. They don't have power over immigration. I said, well, then how in the world would you naturalize somebody that's not even really here already? And that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And we argue a little bit over that. But anyway, December 1st, 2017, the following statement was issued by Dan Stein, president of the Federation for American Immigration Reform, in response to the acquittal of Jose Inez Garcia Zarate on charges of murder and involuntary manslaughter in Kate Steinle's murder case. Now, and there was other violations of the law. He was, since he's not a citizen, he's not allowed to own a weapon in the United States, and he had a gun, so he's breaking not only state but federal gun laws, and he wasn't charged on any of those. He's pretty much acquitted of any wrongdoing, and yet this guy was wallowing in lawbreaking in the death of Kate Steinle. The nation is rightfully shocked and heartbroken that a 5-time deported alien, criminal alien, who should have never been in the country in the first place. Let me do something here real quick. Just bring that up a notch or two. My eyes are getting old. Will get off nearly scot-free in the killing of Kate Steinle. Her death was completely preventable and is yet another example of Congress failing to do its most important job, ensuring the safety of the American public. Congress has repeatedly failed national interest first in immigration policy instead of focusing on funding the border wall and administering strong penalties against dangerous sanctuary city jurisdictions. Congress is currently consumed in offering yet another amnesty program for illegal aliens. Even more outrageously, Democrat leadership is threatening to shut down the government as a way of forcing through this controversial proposal, and that's the DACA. They're talking about, tagging this DACA onto the budget and funding the government. And this is another thing. I follow a website called Downsize DC, and they have and it hasn't gone through Congress yet, but it really needs some attention. The Clean Bill Act, where you bring a bill up, that's the only thing that comes. If your bill is with funding the government, that's the only thing it should be about. And we wouldn't have all these amendments and these riders that go on with all these earmarked bills that go on here. Congress has repeatedly failed to put the national interest first in immigration policy. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go down. I got on the bottom one here. I already read that. Hopefully, this tragic verdict will serve as a teachable moment for elected officials on both sides of the aisle. Congress must now focus on the safety of the American people by securing the border and enhancing immigration enforcement. Until that goal is achieved, all other immigration benefits, such as an amnesty for deferred action for childhood arrivals DACA recipients, should be set aside. And I agree. This has been going on for far, far too long, folks. It shouldn't be. This should not be happening in America. It really shouldn't. But it is. Sorry to say, it is. And we need to take care of it. This is something we need to take care of now. And folks, if the Democrats are so, and this just makes me furious, if they're so intent on supporting illegal immigrants over actual American citizens, then maybe they need to go to Mexico and run for office if they're that much in support of Mexican citizens coming here, or whatever country these immigrants are coming from. A lot of the immigrants come here on visas and they overstay their visas. And to me, coming in on a visa and tracking a visa, that should be the easiest. That should be falling off the log easy for the federal government. And when the visa's up, if you're not out of the country, and they can tell because you haven't crossed back through a departure location, either boat or plane or whatever, if you haven't gone through customs to get out of the country, they know you're still here. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to go and pick these folks up. Matter of fact, they're allowed. The federal government does use local law enforcement, local EOs, to help them do their job. Find these people, detain them, put a retainer on them until the federal government can get there, and then they bring them back. They had to come from a country because they're on a visa, and get them on a plane and put them back to where they came from. They overstayed their visas. A lot of immigration, to me, immigration control is common sense falling off the log easy to take care of. And deaths like Kate Steinle's death wouldn't have happened. And honestly, I was out in San Francisco once. I delivered mail to the post office out in San Francisco. It's a beautiful town. Not knocking it, not saying anything about it. My aunt and uncle that live out in Northern California, they used to go down to San Francisco quite a bit, and they really like that down there, the San Francisco Bay Area. And they've actually taken, like my parents went out there, and aunts and uncles, and my grandparents went out there to visit their son that lives in Northern California, and they took them all over the place out there. And so, nothing against California. I think it's a beautiful state. I just think the politicians are ruining that state. And quite honestly, I wouldn't want to live anywhere near San Francisco because of their idiotic policies, their sanctuary city policies out there. That burns me up. That just really burns me up to no end. Now, we have another story here. Like I said, all these really break my heart. And this is from immigrationreform.com by Joe Gomez. Mom and son brutally killed by illegal alien disgusted over DACA gridlock. And this is was posted on the 11th of this month, 12/11/2017. Democrats are doubling down. No kidding. Democrats are doubling down on demands that Congress protect Dreamers as part of any compromise to avert a government shutdown. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, stated they will not leave here without a DACA fix. The threat from Pelosi comes as thousands of illegal alien activists stage displays of civil disobedience across the country to get lawmakers to push through a legislative amnesty. Many of them are DACA recipients who claim they've been victimized by a broken immigration system, but who are the real victims? Let me stop the reading here. They're blaming a broken immigration system, and they should be turning around and looking at mom and dad. What were you thinking? What were you thinking? Put me in this situation like this, that I may have to leave the country. This is the only country I've ever known, but I may have to leave it because of your stupidity. I would be angry at my parents if this happened. I really would. But you don't see that, or at least they're not reporting this outrage. They're not reporting it at all. Families like mine don't have the option of Skyping my son or emailing my son or calling him on the phone, says Maureen Maloney of Milford, Mass., the mother of 23-year-old Matthew Denice, who was killed by a criminal alien. If these DACA recipients are sent back to their native countries, they can do that. Maloney is a co-founder of AVIAC, Advocates for Victims of Illegal Alien Crime. Danger to loss. Her son was killed in 2011 in a grisly car accident perpetrated by an illegal alien from Ecuador. Nicholas Guman, who was driving drunk when he ran through a stop sign and hit Denice, who was riding a motorcycle. Denice rolled over the hood of Guman's truck and crashed in the windshield before Guman ultimately fled the scene. And when he fled, Matthew was lodged underneath the truck and dragged a quarter mile to his death, said Maloney. While he was screaming, there were witnesses. People were pounding on the truck trying to get the driver to stop. She says Denice finally became dislodged when Guman hit a curve, but he then ran over Denice again. Guman was convicted in 2014 of manslaughter and is currently serving a 12 to 14 year sentence. If that illegal alien wasn't in the country, my son would be alive. If these illegal aliens were not in the country, all of our children would be alive. Maloney says she is confounded by the gridlock in Congress over amnesty for illegal aliens. Isn't it disgusting that we're willing to put the DACA recipients ahead of all Americans in this country? They should be focusing on making Americans safe. And that's one of the responsibilities for government, folks. Protecting, defending, keeping us safe from foreign invasions or foreign entities that can do us harm. I read on. Open border advocates have been flooding news outlets with stories about that DACA recipients are going through. We're so outnumbered, and the media chooses to ignore the victims, the true victims of illegal alien crime, says Maloney. For families of illegal alien crime, they feel victimized twice, once by the actual crime itself and second time by a broken immigration system that allowed the perpetrator to stay in the country. The most recent example of that is the Kate Steinle case, where criminal alien Jose Inez Garcia Zarate, who had been deported 5 times, was acquitted in her killing. Steinle's father says justice was rendered, but it was not served, and the family refused to attend court during the verdict. The case closely because she too had to sit through a similar trial. The thing that comes out in trial are things you never even think about as a parent, said Maloney. The trial really does re-traumatize you because suddenly you're hearing about blood spatter, the fingerprints, as Matthew is trying to claw his way up the hood, and he was trying to stop himself from being dragged. It takes a couple of years to get over that shock. And again, here's an and this is just 2 so far. Well, 3 actually now. Three stories of families that have losses because of illegal immigrants are here illegally and causing these deaths. And if they weren't here, and all things being equal, these deaths wouldn't have happened. These families wouldn't be going through these tragedies. And yet we have how many Democrat legislatures in Congress, both the House and the Senate, who care nothing for these victims and care more about the DACA, the dreamers, than they do American citizens and their safety, just like this lady was talking about, just like this Maloney was talking about. it amazes me how these people can look themselves in the mirror and actually look in the eyes of the American people and lie the way they do. That, well, you know, we're all about the folks. We're all about the American citizens when they're not. They care more for illegal aliens than they do our own citizens, like Nancy Pelosi. Sorry, folks, what a horrible woman she is. Maxine Waters, what a horrible woman she is. Dianne Feinstein, who used to be, you know, pro-immigration regulations, is now, you know, I don't know where she's at now. She's off the deep end a little bit, I think. It amazes me. And you got cities like New York City and de Blasio, well, one of the first openly communist mayors in the country, in charge of New York City, sanctuary city. That means these guys can't be deported. As a matter of fact, sanctuary means pretty much you got sanctuary, you pretty much got free reign. You know, because you're not subject. If you're in sanctuary, you're not subject to the laws outside of that sanctuary. And this is where the federal government, and I believe Donald Trump is serious about this, this is where the federal government really has to crack down on these cities. If they're getting federal funds, which I don't know why they're getting federal funds to begin with, that's a whole other issue, a whole other show, they should be cut off. Period. They should be cut off. You know, California, they were talking about making the whole state a sanctuary state. I can't remember where that's standing at, but one of the things, some of the lawmakers, some of the few Republican lawmakers were there, they added up the money that they're actually, the state and the cities are getting from the federal government, and pretty much said we can't afford to do this. The federal government steps in and cuts us off. We're done financially. We're done. And yet, they're still at it. They are still at it. And California is one of the worst offenders of this. Because almost every city in that state, major city in that state, is a sanctuary city. Now, real quick here, I'm trying to keep it around an hour today. Serious crimes committed by illegal aliens. Folks, I was going to do this before the show, and I didn't. I was going to make my screen a little bit bigger because my screens are setting further back from me now. I'm not right on top of my screens anymore. And I forgot to do it. Apologize. So I had to up the view on each page. Now, this is also from the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Serious crimes committed by illegal aliens. You got Donald Da Silva in April 2002. Was standing with a friend in his driveway when he was shot and killed by an illegal alien who had been previously deported. Tessa Tranchant, 16, was killed on March 30, 2007 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Tessa and her friend Ali Canhard were sitting at a stoplight when Alfredo Ramos, an illegal alien from Mexico who was intoxicated and speeding, rear-ended their car. Ramos had a history of prior convictions, but due to Virginia Beach's sanctuary policies, he was never detained. He was charged with the 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 40 years in prison. Again, there's one of these things that should never have happened. Sarah Root, 21, from Omaha, Nebraska, was killed January 31st, 2016. Her SUV was rear-ended by Eswin Majaya, an illegal alien from Honduras, who was street racing. Sarah had just graduated from Bellevue University with a 4.0 GPA the day before she passed away. Omaha is in Douglas County, Nebraska, which has sanctuary policies that impede local enforcement's ability to cooperate with ICE officers. Mahaya, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Mahaya, was charged with motor vehicle homicide, but posted bond to get out of jail and was released. He is still on the run. Here's one that's on the run illegally in our country because of sanctuary cities. Shaylee Estes, Igor Zubko, an illegal alien from Russia, killed Shaylee on July 24, 2015 in Phoenix, Arizona. Shaylee obtained an order of protection against Zubko just 10 days before her murder. But he entered her home and fatally shot her. Zubko entered the U.S. illegally, but overstayed his visa. I just talked about that. And remained in the U.S. illegally. He is in police custody and faces first-degree murder charges. Never should have been here. Drew Rosenberg, 20, Halo, an unlicensed driver from Honduras who entered the U.S. illegally but earned temporary protective status, killed Drew Rosenberg, a second-year law student, on November 16, 2010 in San Francisco, California. Rosenberg was riding his motorcycle when Galo ran over him 3 times with his car. Galo was convicted of vehicular manslaughter and sentenced to 6 months in jail. USCIS refused to deport him, and he was released after serving only 43 days. Thanks to Rosenberg's family activism, Galo was deported on April 4, 2013. The number one responsibility for the federal government is to protect the citizenry. We have been betrayed by successive administrations who have allowed campaign contributions and votes to supersede the responsibility, with the result of being the deaths of tens of thousands of loved ones. Don Rosenberg, Drew's father. And I could go on and on and on. We got Grant back 21. And they have archives. And it goes, this thing is like, let me look this up here real quick. Serious crimes. I think this thing's like 8 pages. Yeah, I have it's in a Word document form, size 12, font, and New Times Roman, and this darn thing is 8 pages long with these archives. I'm not going to go some of the more, the ones that just really stand out. And again, folks, we have politicians in our country that care more about illegal aliens than they do about our own American citizens. And I've never said this on the air before, but I'm going to say it now. I don't think I'm getting in trouble for it, but some people might vehemently disagree with me on this. If I was a family member who had a loved one that was killed by somebody and they're in a sanctuary city, I would seriously think about kidnapping them. I know that's a felony on my part, but getting them outside that sanctuary situation and turn them over to ICE agents. I honestly, I'd seriously think about that. Because it's not right. These sanctuary cities protect these illegals, especially when they commit crimes, and they can't be deported because they don't get any cooperation with the local police, because the local police are between a rock and a hard place. Like I said, I bet you if you ask the local police, they'd want to enforce these laws because it make their job a lot easier. Just turn these criminals over to ICE agents and let them be deported. It's off their books, it's out of their hair, and they can get on to other business. I really do. I think the vast majority of local law enforcement would applaud that. And I think the Trump administration, this is one of the things they're really going to have to work on. They're really going to have to work on getting rid of these sanctuary cities. And they're going to have to, whatever laws that they put in place, they're going to have to put some teeth into them. And if that means arresting councilmen and mayors of these cities, I think they need to be arrested because they're breaking federal law. They're breaking federal law, where the federal government has supremacy in the law. And honestly, you put a couple mayors, especially high-profile mayors and some councilmen behind bars because they're violating federal law, you're going to see the dominoes drop on these sanctuary cities. Now, you're going to have some holdouts. You're going to have some ones that are just going to stand up and, we're making a point here. We're going to stand up against the federal government. But again, you start putting some of these guys in jail for, breaking federal law, obstruction of justice, whatever you want to do. Like I said, I think these sanctuary cities would fold up like a cheap house of cards. They really would. And this is something folks really, really need to get serious about. Immigration. And I'm all for legal immigration. Most of our investors, so many generations back, I'm third generation American. My great-grandfather McCarville immigrated from Ireland on my mom's side. So my grandma was born here. My mom was born here. I was born here. My son's fourth generation. I have a sister and a brother that have grandchildren. So we're talking fifth generation that were born here in the United States. We're Native Americans. And we're the ones that have the rights. We're not, we may at one time been a nation of immigrants, but we're no longer that. We still allow immigration to come into this country, especially illegal immigration. But I'm not against legal immigration. We've had some fantastic folks that I've met in the course of this show when I had the podcast, who their families or them personally immigrated here from like South America. And they're horrified. They did it legally. They become naturalized citizens. They're American citizens now. They have just as much standing in America as a natural born citizen. And they're sickened. They're horrified by our immigration system and what's happening in the United States. And it needs to change. It really does. There's too many thousands of needless deaths caused by illegal immigrants. I mean, we have enough to deal with idiot Americans who drink and drive and cause destruction and heartache for families. We have enough of that to deal with on our own. We don't need to import it. We don't need to allow it to be migrated into the country, as it were. All right, I just have a few more articles here before we end the show. I have a good article here that you need to go over and read by Walter E. Williams, posted today over at cnsnews.com, Fascism and Communism. It's a really good article. You need to go over and read that. I got a little brouhaha, not a brouhaha, but a little discussion with one of my stepsisters out in Ohio. This is funny here. Lisa Bloom should be investigated by Bar Association for paying off Trump accusers. This is law expert Fitzgibbons. I love that name, Fitzgibbons. And she said, well, Lisa Bloom said she didn't do that. Well, okay. There's a lot of people out there say they're innocent of wrongdoing. And we talked about this yesterday. They are innocent until proven guilty. But all the facts that I've seen coming up so far says that she's guilty of this. And that she may need to be disbarred, or she should be disbarred if all these allegations are proven to be correct, which some of them are already. So here we have people, it's not even the benefit of the doubt. I'll give people the benefit of the doubt, but they're not even, this isn't even the benefit of the doubt. She was offering women $75,000 to get Trump on sexual harassment charges. And there are unscrupulous people out there, folks, that will do just about anything for $75,000. That's not helping the sexual harassment epidemic in the United States. That's not helping it at all. As a matter of fact, that's actually defeating it and not allowing things to go the way they're supposed to go. And then finally, this is ridiculous. Panicked Antifa website deletes article about sabotaging train tracks in Olympia after derailment. This is the one that happened back in April. They were talking about sabotaging train tracks in Olympia, Washington, while this train derailment happened down in Oregon. And it's just, folks, these Antifa people need to be dealt with. They really do. Folks, this has been the Dan Clemens Show. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. If you like the show, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like the show, give me a thumbs down. But always leave me a comment. I have way too many people give me thumbs down or thumbs up and not leaving comments. Please leave me a comment. Give me your feedback on why you think the show stinks. And if you're not subscribed to the show, please subscribe to the show and hit the notification button so when I have new, you can be aware of that. Plus, I'm looking for patrons over at my Patreon account and at my PayPal. You can donate either way. $1, $5, $10 a month commitment until I get the show on its feet would be fantastic, and I would truly appreciate it. So you guys have a great rest of the day, and God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon.